sir.
Was it better in the 90s?
Or do we just miss being there?
Welcome back to Was It Better in the 90s? Today, we're looking at the living room battlefield. We're talking about video game consoles. Now, to really figure out if the 90s were the peak of gaming, we have to do a true side-by-side comparison. We're talking about the decade of the 1990s, the 16-bit and 32-bit revolutions, and putting it directly up against the last 10 years of modern gaming from 2016 to 2026. Let's hit the baseline. Today, gaming is inescapable. It is a multi-billion-dollar pop culture juggernaut. It's on your phone, it's in your car, athletes are doing Fortnite dances to scoring touchdowns. But in the 90s, it wasn't mainstream like that. It was our subculture. If you were a gamer in 1994, you belonged to a tribe. And you defended that tribe on the school bus with your life.
Words can't describe the endless challenge of Super Mario World, so we let the players do the talking. 16-bit arcade graphics.
You can't do this on Nintendo Genesis does.
The Sega Genesis has blast processing. Super Nintendo doesn't. So what's blast processing do?
The 90s was a bloodbath. It was the console wars in their purest, most unhinged form. We rolled into the decade with the Nintendo Entertainment System already dominating, but then the 16-bit era kicked the doors down. Super Nintendo versus Sega Genesis. You were either a Mario kid or a Sonic kid. And let me tell you, Sega's marketing was vicious. They were selling attitude. They were selling blast processing, which nobody actually knew what the hell that meant, but it sounded fucking awesome. But it wasn't just the TV. In 1989, going into the 90s, Nintendo dropped the Game Boy. It was a thick gray brick with a green screen. It took 4 AA batteries and it changed the world. You were sitting in the backseat of your parents' car on a road trip, using passing streetlights to see Tetris. It was magic. Now, let's look at the last 10 years. 2016 and 2026, the era of the PS4 Pro, PS5, Xbox Series X, and the Nintendo Switch. I don't personally play a ton of the new stuff, but I have to give respect where it's due. The sheer technological power of the last decade is terrifying. If you showed a kid in 1996 what Cyberpunk or Red Dead Redemption 2 looked like, their head would literally explode. The graphics are photorealistic. The load times are basically gone. And look at the Nintendo Switch. In 2017, Nintendo looked at the Game Boy, looked at home consoles and said, yeah, why not both? You can play a massive high-definition Zelda game on your TV, pull it out of a dock, and take it on an airplane. That's undeniably cool. But let's talk about the hardware itself for a second. The consoles of the last 10 years look like alien technology or modern art exhibits. The PS5 is the side of a surfboard and looks like a futuristic Wi-Fi router. The Xbox Series X looks like a mini fridge. They're sleek, they're quiet, and they're incredibly fragile compared to the 90s. The SNES and the N64 were built like absolute tanks. You could drop a Sega Genesis down a flight of stairs, dust it off, plug it back in, and Sonic was still running. They were durable plastic toys meant to be abused by kids, not $1,000 supercomputers that overheat if you don't dust your entertainment center. Now, I'm not going to sit here with rose-tinted glasses and pretend the 90s were flawless, because for every PlayStation 1, there was a monumental, hilarious failure. The 90s was the Wild West of tech, which meant companies were throwing absolute garbage at the wall to see what stuck. Let's talk about the Virtual Boy, Nintendo's attempt at 3D. It was a red and black pair of goggles mounted on a weird metal tripod. You shoved your face in this thing, and 10 minutes later you had a migraine so bad you needed a dark room and an Advil. It was a torture device. And Atari, they tried to stay alive with the Jaguar. They marketed it as the first 64-bit console, telling us to do the math. Well, the math resulted in the controller that looked like a giant telephone keypad. And Sega? God bless Sega. They panicked. They made a Sega CD. Then they made the 32X, which you literally jammed into the top of your Genesis like a tumor. Then the Saturn. They were releasing consoles faster than our parents could pay off the credit cards. It was a beautiful, chaotic mess. But here's where the 90s completely annihilates the 2016 and 2026 era. The social experience, the couch co-op. In the 90s, multiplayer meant your friends had to physically be in your house. You sat on the floor, Indian style on the carpet, staring at a 27-inch tube TV that was cut into 4 tiny, blurry squares. You ordered pizza, you drank your weight in soda, and you played GoldenEye Mario Kart 64 or Super Smash Bros. It was an event. And the stakes were incredibly high because if your buddy was screen watching, looking at your square to see where you were hiding, you didn't report their account or mute them. You punched them in the arm. You reached over and yanked their controller cord out of the console. There was physical, real-world accountability for talking shit in 1997.
You are all trash! Get out of my lobby! Is anyone actually ready to play the game? Shut your mouth up, you absolute Imagine tryharding in a public lobby, kid.
Today, the online landscape is a totally different beast. Again, it is technically amazing. You can sit in your house and instantly play Call of Duty with a guy in Japan, a kid in London, and a neighbor down the street. And let's be honest, you hear some interesting and funny ass shit today in those chat lobbies. You log in and you got people blasting awful music, screaming at the top of their lungs, and talking like the most unhinged trash to motherfuckers thousands of miles away. It is toxic, it is hilarious, and in a weird way, it's the modern evolution of the arcade trash talk. I respect the chaos, but it's isolating. You're sitting alone in a room with your headset on. It will never, ever replace the feeling of 4 people crammed to a couch yelling at each other in person. And that brings me to the absolute worst part of the gaming from 2016 and 2026, the corporate greed. In the last 10 years, gaming has become a service. When you buy a game today, you aren't really buying a game. You're buying a license to download a 100 gigabyte file. And when you finally want to play it, you can't. Because there is a massive day one patch you have to install. And once you're in the game, they want more money. Microtransactions, battle passes, $20 for your skin, so your gun looks like a laser beam. The games are frequently released broken, full of bugs, and the developers say, oh, don't worry, we'll patch it over the next 6 months. In the 90s, the games were fucking complete. There was no internet connection to patch a bug. When Nintendo shipped Super Mario World or Sony shipped Final Fantasy VII, it had to be perfect. You saved your allowance, you walked in an electronics boutique or Toys R Us, and you bought a physical cartridge. You brought it home, you blew the dust off the bottom, which we all know you weren't supposed to do, but we did it anyway. You slammed it into your console, pushed the power button, and you were playing in 5 seconds. No updates, no terms of service, no microtransactions. You bought the game, and the game belonged to you. Modern consoles are engineering marvels. Being able to connect with people globally is a great thing, and the graphics are unbelievable. But the soul of gaming, the plug-and-play simplicity, the ownership of physical media, and having your best friends physically sitting next to you on a Friday night, the last 10 years can't touch that. Was it better in the 90s? Yeah, it fucking was.